Welcome back from that break. We are discussing about the political and socio-economic implications of DRC joining the East African community. With me, I have two gallant men who are so knowledgeable about the East African Great Lakes, Mr. Edgar Tabaro and Mr. Dismas Kunda. Before we went for that break, Edgar was discussing about the possible some members within DRC are discussing about the balkanization of DRC, where they want the areas with minerals to split and form their own republics, so that they can be able to be in charge of their own minerals, as instead of having one big country where some other areas don't have minerals and some other areas have minerals. So I wanted to know from I don't know whether Dismas is with us here. The East African community has the aspirations of going in leaving the East African community and becoming a political federation, whereby we have one united state of East Africa with one head of state and also our own currency, the East African currency, which we use to trade within the region. And if you're having discussions of DRC being split and it has already joined the East African community, don't you think this has an implication on the prospective political federation which the East African member states are discussing about? And is it even possible to have the political federation whereby you have a united state of East Africa with one head of state and one currency?
Thank you, Ebo. I think that the political federation is a concept. It's an idea. It's an idea which has yet to be tested and be able to know whether it will bear any fruit. Given that we have these political entities which have their own life, which have their own laws, they have their own constitutions, I have my doubts as to whether in our lifetime, me and you and Edgar, we will see a political federation. I think it's someone's idea who has been nurturing it for a long period of time. I think he means well by the idea of having an East African federation, but in practice, I don't think that it is going to ever happen. I have strong doubts about that. That said, having an East African currency, that one is not the difficult part. We used to have it. So having one central bank which issues currency and we use it across the different countries, that one is much easier because a currency is something that is not as taking away certain rights that belong to you because you belong to a certain geographical entity, which is the political entity that you belong to. So to be able to convince that Kenya gives up its rights and is going to have a different president. Tanzania gives up its rights. Burundi, South Sudan, etc. is going to be a complicated process and the idea to sell. But the country is integrating, and that's what we are saying. Individuals can integrate even without having the processes of the East African community. If you go all along the borders of I can give you an example. Edgar and I come from Kisoro on the border with the DRC. But it's easier for me, and I did an experiment at the border in Bunagana. I came with a colleague of mine, she's Irish, and I told her, okay, let's cross over to Bunagana, the side of DRC. We can, buy some Primus, and we come back. And when we attempted to pass through the border, the immigration officers were extremely very angry. They were very hostile to me for passing the border without going to their offices. So we withdrew and went back. I went back to my village. From Bunagana to my village is about 5 kilometers. So I went back and I put on Shabile. I rode a bicycle and I came back to the border and no one stopped me. I passed by and when I came back from across the border, I asked the officer, but you let me go this time. Why? He said the other time because you are with a white person. So what I'm trying to show you is that if you come to a market on Monday in Kisoro, half of the population that are there are from DRC and they have come to buy things. They are going to trade. Half of them are from Rwanda. They have come to trade. They'll buy and cross the border without anyone asking them whether they have a national ID, whether they have a passport, because people go across the border, you plant in a garden, and you come back in the evening. Now, which is a better way of us integrating than that? So integration is not the lifting of a geographical entity and putting it in a certain basket and you say, okay, now you integrate by force. It's a process, and that process is opening up of borders, like rightly now what is happening in DRC, accessing Uganda, Eastern DRC accessing Uganda, Western Uganda accessing DRC. That is the process. South Sudan accessing Northern Uganda accessing South Sudan. That is the integration. Otherwise, this one of on paper of meeting in Arusha and saying, since you have joined today Democratic Republic of Congo, all of a sudden we are integrated. No, sir.
Thanks so much, Ankunda. Edgar, you've just listened to Dismas trying to give his concept of the term integration, where he thinks that we can integrate without even carrying another country's geographical sphere to another, but we just need to relate and have common markets where we can trade and associate with others. But there is this concept, or I want to call it a pillar, which some of the member states, or there are some leaders within the member states are trying to advocate for, of having a political federation whereby we have one integrated East African community, where we call it a United State of East Africa, with one political head and also one currency. Do you think that is possible now that Congo, which is part of more than 2 blocks, has joined the East African community and has a lot of conflicts within its own territory? Can we really have a political federation within East Africa and we have one person to lead the entire region?
Why is Edgar laughing?
I don't know what I'm trying to practice self-censorship. I don't know whether I would be doing a disservice, whether I would be doing a disservice to our listeners and audience if I practice self-censorship on this. I don't know. Maybe let me seek guidance from my elder Dismas. What can I say and what can I leave out?
Edgar, you say it. We all know that you say your things and nothing happens to you.
Well, ever since diplomatic efforts were limited to informal avenues.
Yes. Yes.
And now efforts are between uncle and nephew. I don't know. I don't want to overstep my limits. Somebody was telling me punching above my weight. But anyway, I'll put it as it is. The major driver of the political federation is certainly President Museveni. He's very passionate about it. It is something he has pursued most of his adult life. There are debates that date back to the 1960s when he was a student at University of Dar es Salaam. And he didn't stop at just debating these things or taking them at theoretical level. He undertook practical military training in Mozambique. And went ahead to publish a thesis on Franz Fanon's theory of violence. So the theater of violence is that he understands very well. And if you listen to his speeches, every now and then, he has never declined an invitation to do political violence. He said it during the September riots of 2019, and every time he's passing out specialized units of the UPDF, he always outlines his speeches using historical mission. I'm trying to be politically correct, and I hope you understand me.
I hear you.
So at every time he's passing out Kawamba, every time he goes to commission a factory, a military factory for specialized fabrication, assembling, repair of military hardware, he has indicated where he's heading. He has a vision, and he's walking the path of the talk he's talking. They're walking the path of the talk. The military hardware he's assembled, and mind you, our military expenditure now is at 1.2% of the GDP. It's the highest in the region. Even Ethiopia, which is at war, does not come anywhere near our military expenditure, military spend. And from the look of things, the military spend is likely to go up to maybe $2 billion. Now, the UPDF is in Somalia, it's in South Sudan, it's in the DRC. I don't want to mention other areas, they are controversial, and I'll leave them to those who have the guts like Dismas. Now, it's very clear that, and if you heard his talk on Ukraine, the Ukraine crisis, he has talked of a center of gravity in Africa. The drive is to create a center of gravity. If you look at the map of the new map, with the addition of DRC, the new map of the East African community, Uganda geographically is the center of this whatever, of this region. His drive is to make Uganda the center of gravity of the so-called emerging superpower called the East African community. He has pursued that dream from the time he was a student at Dar es Salaam, influenced by Professor Nathan Shamyarila, Shivji, Walter Rodney, the likes of Nabdele, Professor Kanywani. These other were mainly theoretical people, mouthing off aspects of Pan-Africanism and integration. And he realized from these academic discussions that unless the military might is built, those discussions shall just remain visions, and the destiny there'll be no end in sight for that destiny. Now, he's 77 years. He certainly doesn't have another 77 years with us. DRC is now formal on board. I'm very certain he's going to drive that political federation. It's going to be his major focus for the rest of his life. Now, coming to the aspect of that Dismas talked about, the protocols and what have you, and the informal trade. Now, it's very critical that some of these protocols be concluded, because under these protocols, we'll have clearly delimited spaces from which we can operate. For instance, now under the East African community, we automatically have security cooperation with the DRC, and we can deploy, mind you, under the Shuja agreement. Uganda's operation in the DRC is limited to Ituri and limited to pursuing the ADF. And now we're talking of 133 militia forces there. For Uganda to engage them, we'll need another framework. Now, the East African Community Treaty provides better avenue for DRC, for Uganda to be involved there. Mind you, we are having elections in the DRC next year, and the terrain is fast changing. In late January, we had an attempted coup there, led by a very powerful person from the Mobutu days, Francois Beya Kasongo, and went on to become security advisor for Kabila and was retained by Tshisekedi. Now, everybody associated with him is fallen out with the sitting government. Now, these fallouts definitely cause fractions and divisions. Martin Fayulu, and a Nobel laureate called Dr. Denis Mukwege, is a Mushi from Bukavu, are very opposed to Ugandan presence there, and it's regarded as an occupation force in their eyes. Now they've been propping up support for opposition to Uganda's presence there. Now, East African community provides a very good avenue for us to be legally involved there. So whereas Bwana Nkunda is skeptical about the political federation, and has added that it doesn't happen like that, I think the vision bearer is moving faster than I and Mr. Nkunda.
So you do agree we can really have one head of state or one person who will be in charge of all the now 7 countries. If at all we form now the United States of East Africa, of course, shall be one. Can we really have one person?
I'll put it this way. Kenya will soon have an ex-president. Kenya will soon have an ex-president. He's certainly exiting. They will have 2 living ex-presidents.
Oh, yes, that's what I wanted to say.
They'll have 2 living ex-presidents. The other one is very resigned, playing golf at Muthaiga and attending community events in Nyeri, in Othaya. This one is fairly young and vibrant. He's a businessman. He's a big shareholder in NCB, what's it, bank?
Yes.
And he packs milk. He packs milk. What is it called, that dairy outfit?
Brookside.
Brookside. Now, milk is a very much sought after commodity in the DRC. They import all their milk, dairy products from either South Africa or Europe. As well, they import their meat products, especially the other side of Western DRC, Kinshasa. They import their milk, their animal products from South America, Argentina and Brazil. Now, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta is definitely a businessman, and given his outlook towards the world, he will definitely be for political federation. And in any case, he has left office. Now, in Tanzania, we have 2 living ex-presidents. One is 95, 96, Ali Hassan Mwinyi. And we have Jakaya, yes?
Thereabout.
Yeah, we have Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete. He's an ex-soldier, a lieutenant colonel, ex-head of military intelligence, ex-diplomat, and from the body language and discussions I hear, and his interactions in the region, he's for a similar federation. Now, if you have Kenya, Tanzania, and DRC on board, the others who would be opposed to it would be negligible. And I'm mentioning this deliberately. I'm not just mouthing off. These are practical. These are dynamics that are informing this process. And to bring Tanzania on board was a painstaking process. Tanzania preferred to belong to SADC. But the moment, remember, Mr. Nkunda, the oil pipeline was supposed to go through to join the Lamu. Remember the Lamu Grand project from Juba connecting through northeastern Kenya, Turkana down to Lamu port. Now that's where, and feasibility studies had been undertaken from the Albert and Graben through northern Uganda. Now, unknown to them, an alternative feasibility study had been done and concluded, and behind the scene negotiations concluded with John Pombe Magufuli. You remember the agreement signed at Mutukula, Mr. Nkunda?
Yes.
The moment Tanzania gave, and remember the largest part of the pipeline is through Tanzania, and Tanzania was given shares in that oil pipeline. The moment Tanzania came on board, the rest was only a matter of time. And I'm mentioning Kikwete in particular, and I mentioned his background purposefully to inform this process, that Kikwete may be an ex-president, but believe me, believe me, he's still in charge of that country. His son joined the cabinet earlier this year. Mr. Kunda, apparently these things of family, they are not limited to Uganda. Kenya, we see some of it. Tanzania now. I will not mention the other countries. So the other countries, the other countries that that may be lukewarm towards the political federation are really negligible. And I believe Museveni will handle them militarily if they come in his way. I hope I'm understood.
Yeah,
I can't be any more. I can't be any more.
I like your hope.
We live on hope, Mr. Nkunda.
Mr. Nkunda, would you like to respond on his hope?
No, I mean, Edgar is my brother. We share quite a lot, but certainly the history he's giving is that when all those things are done, countries tend to fall back into into their own cocoon whenever things that are embracing the region comes to the fore. I certainly know what he has discussed about Kikwete, about DRC, about Kenya and the entire business interests. But the moment it comes to wrestling of political power, rendering, I remember I was involved in the process, Edgar, I think of the when the late Colonel Gaddafi wanted to unite the Africa and make it one country. We were at a summit in Accra, and I was in that room in which Gaddafi had even apportioned ministries to sitting heads of state.
Sitting presidents.
To sitting presidents. I remember he had even given, I think he had given Kagame, the state minister for defense. He had given Mbeki as the minister of trade. So there, and
Nkurunziza was a minister for youth.
For youth and community development. And so it was every head of state was looking at him and said, no, we can't. So there is that thing of having an idea that we can create this federation can work. But when pushing comes to shoving, some of these countries retreat back to their own thinking back home of saying that, okay, what are these powers I'm giving away? What is it that I'm going to give? Why should it be Museveni anyway? Why can't the president of the East African Federation be, for heaven's sake, either Raila or Ruto? So the point is, or Ndayishimiye, the president of Burundi, why must it be him? So there is that thing of having an idea that is grand, that is very well thought. You are thinking about the processes of how you are going to achieve your grand idea of having the East African Federation and it becoming one country. But when reality comes in checking, I have high doubts, and I gave it a timeline, Edgar, of saying that in our lifetime, and between me and you, our lifetime is not very far for us not to see this happen.
I want to also interject there. You are saying others are suspicious that the political federation head will be Museveni, but in some of the discussions I've listened to, they are saying it will be a rotational basis. If it's Uganda this time, in another time it will be maybe someone from Tanzania, someone from DRC, someone from Rwanda. So unless there's
Abel, have you ever seen change of constitutions?
Yes.
In which country, Mr. Nkunda?
Within the member states of the East African Community.
Which ones are notorious for changing the constitution to suit the whims of those who run affairs?
Well, I can give you examples, but I'll inbox you.
Okay, our time is fast spent. So I would like you all to give your parting shots, especially on whether you think East Africa will benefit more from the joining of DRC, and your other take on the federation and other things about the East African integration. I will start with you, Edgar.
Well, there are immense possibilities. The potential, the possibilities are immense. However, to harness the potential, we'll have to be purposeful will have to be intentional. Have to be purposeful as well as intentional. Now, as far as Uganda is concerned, there's a lot of excitement, that has been generated by this, and the trajectory of trade from last year's statistics shows a good trend of growth of trade between the two countries. Now, whereas that enthusiasm is high and is been built, and the momentum hopefully will be built on, there are certain setbacks that are in place. DRC and South Sudan do not have currencies of their own to talk about. I'm certain you've never heard of the Congolese franc. You've never seen even a currency note from the DRC. The Sudanese pound is illiquid, so is the Congolese franc. Now, gold is used as a medium of exchange. Gold is a currency for those two economies. When you look at the Bank of Uganda figures for gold exports, there are more of re-exports from the DRC and South Sudan. Now, when you look at the amount, the returns from the gold re-exports, they are inversely proportional to the export commodities from Uganda to those two destinations, South Sudan and the DRC. The building materials, the cooking materials, or household items, the whatever, the apparel that comes from Uganda to those countries. Now, the challenge we have is that the biggest gold refinery in Uganda has more or less shut down. The gold refinery in Uganda has shut down. If you look at the re-exports of gold from Uganda for the first quarter, they are negligible. Why has that happened? The relations of the owner of the gold refinery in Uganda, Alan Gotes, were convicted by a court in Belgium. They followed up with sanctions against the brothers and the refinery. Mr. Nkunda knows as well as I do that those sanctions were pushed by lobbyists within the region and beyond.
And there were accusations that some of the dealings of gold are the ones that are causing the insurgencies in Congo. So I don't know whether that is really correct also.
Well, your guess is as good as mine. But what I'm emphasizing is that whereas we are pursuing trade activities in the DRC, we must be mindful that there are other extraneous forces that are coming to frustrate the whole exercise. So on the second leg is the historical breakdown of relations between Uganda and the DRC following the activities that we undertook there in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now, the DRC population still views Ugandans with suspicion. Now, for us to be able to harness the efforts and the potential we have in the DRC is to address those challenges and take them head on. We must have truth and reconciliation with the people of the DRC. Mr. Nkunda and I have relations across. We know their feelings. They may not say them at elite forums like we are saying now, but believe me, they are deeply hurt. And you want to go and trade with the people who view you with suspicion. We got to do a lot more than diplomatic statements and diplomatic rapprochement with that country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edgar. Mr. Nkunda, your parting shots?
We know that about 60 million of Congolese live below $1 per day, and so it's a very poor community that we have there. But the beauty with the DRC is that even when they are poor, they are very happy people. I am certainly sure that Edgar knows we will import some Rumba music, we will be able to get Congolese entertainers, as it were. But certainly as a business entity, if you have 60 million people who live below $1 a day, you would be able to do good business with them. And for us who come close by from the border, the easiness with which we can now do business. If you come to a town like Kisoro, half of the people who work there, half of the saloons that are in Kisoro are owned by Congolese. You know, if you go and look at people who work in bars, people who bring in, you know, various other things. So the point I'm trying to make is that it is enormous, the benefits of us having the Congo inside the East African community. The only thing which I agree with Edgar is that we have to harness it in a manner that people feel very comfortable. Edgar was being diplomatic. He didn't tell you that when we went to DR Congo, we even looted women. We came with women whom had, you know, men coming parading around with 64 women whom they married in a space of less than 6 months. So the point is, those people have a lot of suspicion about what exactly our intentions are, why the rapprochement at this point. So, but if we address those questions, enormous. I saw the other day the Economist magazine, one of the most popular in the world, was writing and saying that the East African community is going to become one of the strongest countries in the world, meaning they have started recognizing the armies that are involved. Edgar has been describing the strength of the military. Kenya, you know, by the way, Edgar and Abel, Somalia applied before DR Congo, but they were denied to become members of the East African community. And I have it on record that Ethiopia has now applied. So you can imagine the extent to which we are going. The next one is that
even Khartoum.
Khartoum applied, but yeah. So anyway, the question is, the bigger this community becomes, the better for our people in terms of movement of people, movement of goods, and in terms of cultural functioning of a region that was torn apart, like Edgar said, by colonial interest. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nkunda and Edgar, for your views. You've been so interesting, and we believe that the joining of DRC to the East African community will further strengthen the bloc, and we hope that the trade amongst the countries within the region will be boosted, and also people will be able to move from Congo to Uganda, not being called as refugees, and we hope to see a lot more coming. But the question of the security in DRC Congo is what I'm waiting to see whether it will improve. So since now they have joined the East African bloc. Thank you so much. I've been Abel Eseru. Keep following our discussion on our social media platforms, Acfim Uganda on YouTube, Acfim on Facebook, and Acfim UG on Twitter.